Hey everybody, we are on chapter 9 of My Life as Alien Monster Bait, and chapter 9 is called Send in the Fleas. The next day, the limo dropped me off at the movie set bright and early. If I was a little lucky, we'd finish before my class ever showed up. If I was a lot lucky, there'd be a major earthquake and the ground would open up and swallow me whole. Unfortunately, it was not my lucky day. First, it took a couple of hours to get Gertrude working right. She was hiccuping again. Then, a couple more hours to get Chad out of his dressing room. He was whining again, something about a pimple that he didn't want his public to see. Anyway, it was 11 o'clock by the time we were all in our places. Me, my actor buddies, Chad, Laura, Gertrude, the billboard, the convertible. Oh, and about 100 of my so called fans. They had all shown up and were standing behind a roped off area gawking at me. A lot of them, like Reptile Man, Melissa Sue, Brock's girlfriend, and Dad's boss, were waiting for me to make good of all my hotshot promises. Others, like Opera, who was carrying a giant shoebox full of our newly hatched fleas, were there simply to watch and cheer me on. "Attaboy, Wally!" someone yelled from behind the rope. "Do us proud!" Dad called from behind his video camera. "If you die, can I have your computer?" Wall Street shouted. "Quiet!" the little man with the big megaphone cried. "Quiet, or you'll have to clear the set." They all settled down and waited. It was kind of cool having everyone watch me. I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. I'd also be lying if I said it was worth all the pain and hassles I'd been through. With any luck, it would be over in just 2 minutes. Then again, we've already talked about my luck. They went through the usual shouting countdown of sound, speed, camera, rolling, until we finally came to and action. Everybody remembered what to do. Everything went like clockwork. Well, for a second. Once again, there was the flash behind the billboard. Once again, my actor buddy cried, "What's that?" Once again, Gertrude's head crashed through the sign. And once again, I opened my mouth to scream. But before any sound came out, Gertrude started bucking. I threw a look over at her operator at the control panel. He had that same, "uh-oh, now what?" look on his face. Before I could jump back, Gertrude opened her jaws and grabbed my left leg. Then things went haywire. We all knew Gertrude was supposed to pick me up. It was in the script. But not like this. She wasn't supposed to pick me up by my left leg. We weren't supposed to go shooting up into the air quite so high or quite so fast, and her body was not supposed to bounce back and forth out of control. But it did. The crowd gasped. Well, everyone but Dad. "Relax," he said, smiling from behind his video camera. "I talked to the director. It's all in the script. It's perfectly safe." Not quite. I was dangling 30 feet in the air, hanging by one foot from Gertrude's mouth. All this as she did the two-step or hokey pokey or whatever dance routine she was learning. With every buck and hop, my foot slipped further and further out of her mouth. With every buck and hop, I was coming closer and closer to a little one-on-one, face-to-face chat with God. Now, being the cool, calm professional I am, I did what any cool, calm professional would do. I screamed for my mommy. "Mom!" Bounce, Buck. "Dad!" Buck, bounce. "Somebody get me!" Bounce, Buck, bounce. "Down from here!" I caught a glimpse of Gertrude's controller. He was spinning dials and pulling levers, but he could have been on a cruise to Tahiti for all the good he was doing. By now, the entire film crew was in a panic, everyone but the director. "Keep it rolling," he shouted to his cameraman. "Keep it rolling." "See," Dad said a little less confidently, "they know what they're doing." "Get me down!" I kept screaming. "Get me down from here!" Reptile Man was the first to act. "It's a short," he shouted as he pushed his way to the front of the crowd. He darted under the rope and started for Gertrude's operator. A security guy tried to stop him, but it did no good. "It's an electrical short in your power converter," he cried as he finally broke free and raced toward Gertrude's operator and control panel. "Get me down from here! Get me down!" "Wally! Wally!" Opera was also squirming and wiggling his way to the front of the crowd. "Keep it rolling! Keep it rolling!" the director cried. Reptile Man arrived beside Gertrude's operator and did what any scientifically trained electronic genius would do. He gave the control panel a good solid kick. Gertrude let out a hiss of gas as her neck dropped toward the ground. The only problem was we were dropping at about 1,000,000,000 miles per hour. Wally! Wally! It was Opera's turn to duck under the rope. He broke past the guard and raced toward us. Even as I was about to die, I was impressed by Opera's love for me. Funny, after all I had done to him, he still cared. He was still trying to help. Not that there was a lot he and his giant flea motel could do. Still, when he finally joined me in heaven, I'd have to look him up and say thanks. In short, there was nothing anybody could do. Well, except for the director. But he knew a good scene when he saw one. Keep it rolling! Keep it rolling! Then, just before old Gertrude made me a permanent part of the pavement, Reptile Man gave her controls one last kick. She screeched to a halt just a couple feet from the ground. Talk about close. Then her mouth hissed open and she spit me out. "Oh, Wally, Wally!" Opera shouted as he raced toward me, all 187 pounds worth. He spread open his arms as he ran at me. "You're safe! You're safe!" At the speed he was going, I knew I wouldn't be safe for long. He hit me so hard that he knocked me to the ground, and I rolled out of Gertrude's reach. Unfortunately, Opera didn't. Suddenly, old Gertrude let out another hiss. Her mouth fell to the pavement and clanged shut again. Only this time, it was around Opera. "Ah!" Opera screamed about 100 times better than I ever had. "Keep rolling," the director cried. "Go in for a close-up. Go in for a close-up." The cameraman obeyed as Gertrude's head again flew back up into the sky. Once again, she started bucking and bouncing her fancy dance. Reptile Man dropped to his knees and, with the operator's help, madly unscrewed the front of the control panel. The crowd screamed louder and louder. "This is great," the director cried. "Cue the convertible! Chad, Laura, get in there for the rescue!" Chad nodded and threw his speedster in gear. It roared forward and squealed to a stop directly under Opera, directly under the bucking Gertrude. Opera continued his scream. "Ah!" He seemed to be getting better with every breath, but Opera wasn't just screaming for his life. There was something else at stake. For every time Gertrude bucked and jerked, she loosened Opera's hold on his shoebox. Try as he might, the big guy could no longer hold on. At last, the box slipped from his hands. His prized possession, his family of 1,000,000 newly hatched little pets, plummeted to the earth. "My fleas!" he screamed. It was like slow motion. Everyone watched his box tumble end over end. Everyone gasped as the lid gently came off and fluttered away. Everyone shrieked as the 1,000,000 fleas started raining down upon them. Everyone but the director. "Keep rolling! Keep it rolling!" Laura was the first to lose control. "Get him off! Get him off!" she screamed as the fleas showered over her. She slapped her shoulders and clawed at her hair. "Somebody get him off!" Now, Chad would have been the likely volunteer, but he was too busy screaming his own brand of hysteria and tearing at his own hair. That is, until he accidentally ripped off his toupee. That's right. Chad Steele's beautiful hair was nothing more than a wig, a major wig. Now everyone, including the camera, saw him for what he really was. Not the handsome middle-20s hunk that set every heart a-twitter. No, this was the older, nearly bald coward that made everyone in the crowd start to boo. Everyone but Dad's boss. In a flash, Mr. Feinstein broke through the line shouting, "I'm coming, Laura, I'm coming!" Before anyone could stop him, he had reached his dream of dreams. He had come to her rescue. "I'm here, Miss Lotta Lips. Take my coat. There you go. Atta girl." He wrapped his coat around the sobbing woman and helped her hobble off the set. It was a sight to behold. All that was missing was his suit of armor and a white horse. Meanwhile, Reptile Man had torn away the cover of the control panel and ripped out a couple wires. Immediately, Gertrude stopped bucking. Just like that. Amazing. Then Reptile Man turned another knob. There was the hiss of gas escaping as Gertrude slowly lowered Opera to the ground. I threw a look over at the director. For the first time in the entire film, he was actually smiling. I couldn't believe it. "And cut! Print it!" he said as he turned to his crew, beaming. "We got it, boys. We got ourselves the take." The crew broke into cheers and applause. Soon they swarmed around Opera, slapping him on the back, telling him what a great job he did, what a great scream he had, and how his fleas had really made the scene. The scene, the director cried. No way! You made the picture. You and your fleas saved my movie. I have this vision now. I finally know what this picture is about. Thank you. He gave Opera a big kiss. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The crew tried to raise the new hero to their shoulders, but it only took a couple attempts before they realized their backs weren't as young as they used to be. And me, I kind of stood off to the side. No one even spoke to me. I couldn't believe it. Suddenly, Opera was the hot shot. Suddenly, Opera was the star. And the worst thing was, I couldn't even hold it against him. After all, the guy was only trying to save my life. Speaking of saving my life, I glanced over at Reptile Man. Gertrude's operator was pumping my teacher's hand up and down. It looked like he was pretty thankful, too. Then, off in the distance, I spotted Melissa Sue. She was stooping down to pick up Chad's toupee. She rose with it in her hands and clutched it to her chest. Even at that distance, I thought I could hear a faint, dreamy sigh. Brock and his date were standing next to the little guy with the big megaphone. He was bragging about how he could get her a job and make her a star, and she was swallowing everything he said, hook, line, and sinker. Brock, on the other hand, was staring off, lost in thought. I figured he was thinking of trading her in for a different model, one with a brain. And Wall Street, she was on her hands and knees scooping up fleas. They're going to be a collector's item, she shouted to me. They're going to make me a bundle. Suddenly, Dad's hand was on my shoulder. Nice job, son. I looked up at him. He continued. For a minute, you had me worried, but I guess it was all planned, right? I tried to smile. And Mr. Feinstein and Laura Lottalips? He motioned toward the two of them sitting side by side at a distant bench. They were sipping Perrier and talking and laughing like they were old buddies. That was real genius the way you worked that out. Real genius, son. Again, I tried to smile. But these fleas, he said, slapping his neck and rubbing his shoulder. You'd think they could have used fake fleas instead of the real thing. Well, you know Hollywood, I said with a grin, doing some head scratching and shoulder slapping of my own. They hate being fake. They love everything to be real. And so that is the second to last chapter. The last chapter is chapter 10, and it's actually called Wrapping Up. So I will read a chapter 10 for you tomorrow, and then on Thursday, we'll start a new book. All right, everybody, have a great day.